A compact DAC, preamp and headphones amp in an attractive housing for €469. Sounds promising. The Sabaj A20d DAC is a charming compact DAC that offers 3 digital inputs, 768 kHz PCM, DSD512 and MQA, a full color display, both balanced and single-ended headphones and line outputs, and comes with a remote control. Sounds promising, but let's first see where it is to be used in the stereo. The Sabaj needs to be connected to a digital source like a network player or network bridge. The difference between the two is that a network player can play music autonomously, while a network bridge needs a music player or server program on a computer. Let's use the bridge here. For the connections are the same, it needs to be connected to your network over a network cable or Wi-Fi. From there, a connection to the internet provides access to internet radio stations and streaming services like Tidal, Qobuz, Amazon Music, Apple Music, Spotify and so on. And of course to your computer needed for the bridge. In case a network player is used, this is not necessary unless you want to play music stored on your computer. When you then add a set of headphones, you can enjoy the music. A remote control comes with the unit. As you might know, I don't enjoy headphones listening too much, so I would need an amplifier connected over RCA or XLR cables and a set of loudspeakers. If you have used the USB input for the bridge, you could connect your old CD player to the Sabaj over SPDIF and a TV over Toslink. The cabinet is made from blank aluminium with black sides. The two ears on the front, the handles in 19-inch style, are slightly out of proportion to my taste, given the size of the Sabaj, 200 by 210 by 59 mm. It weighs 1.5 kilos. On the front we see a full color display that shows the input chosen, whether the music is in PCM, DSD or MQA, the sampling frequency, if the headphones output is active, and the volume setting. The large knob controls a rotary encoder for setting the volume, operating the menu after a short press and standby after a long press. There are 2 headphone outputs, one 4.4mm Sony Pentagon jack for balanced headphones and one conventional 6.3mm jack for normal headphones. On the rear we see the ISE standard mains input, the Bluetooth antenna, the USB input for connecting from a computer, the Toslink input and the SPDIF input. Finally the single-ended outputs on RCA and the balanced outputs on XLR. If your amplifier has XLR inputs, always use XLR to XLR cables. If your amp has only RCA inputs, always use RCA to RCA cables. In general, it is not wise to use adapters to use XLR outputs on RCA inputs and vice versa. Inside we see a more or less standard layout with left the power supply, then the system control, the digital input circuitry, the analog line outputs and the headphones outputs. When we look in detail, we see the AC mains filter, the switch mode power supply that converts the incoming 90 to 240 volts AC into plus and minus 12 volts DC, and filtering and buffering of the DC signal here and here. An ARM processor does the system control and provides the display with data over a lint cable from this connector. Then the digital inputs. These are mainly done by the XMOS XU316 that also does MQA decoding. This small piggyback mounted circuit board holds the Bluetooth circuitry using a Qualcomm Bluetooth chip that supports 24-bit 96 kHz LDAC, aptX, HD, SBC and AAC. The clock oscillator is situated here, relatively far from the DAC chips. There are two of them, the AK4191 EQ for the headphones output and the AK4499 EX EQ for the line outputs. The line outputs remain balanced using the OPA 1612 op amps and end in XLRs on the rear. They have an output voltage of 4.65 volts full scale. An extra op amp takes care of the single-ended outputs on RCA that outputs 2.33 volts full scale. As said, the AK4191 EQ DAC chip feeds the headphone amplifier that outputs 2 watts in 16 ohms and 1 watt in 32 ohms. In the menu, an extra 8 dB boost can be set. As said, there are both single-ended and balanced headphone outputs. The SPDIF input accepts up to 192 kHz 24-bit PCM, DSD64 and MQA 768 kHz signals. The same goes for the Toslink input. In both cases, this is limited by the AES-3 standard they must adhere to. The USB input does PCM up to 768 kHz 32-bit, DSD512 and MQA up to 768 kHz. The high sampling frequencies of course only have limited use since normal commercial music often is 44.1 kHz PCM, and if high definition is available it won't go beyond 192 kHz. But hey, it won't hurt to have it. As often is the case nowadays, the Sabaj has 6 reconstruction filters that can be set in a menu. And although often differences in sound character are limited, the filters on the Sabaj offer clear sonic differences. I have measured all 6. They not only differ in impulse behavior, but also in measured distortion. Especially the super slow filter has a very high distortion at high frequencies. In this graph the grey and red curves are the super slow filter and the blue and green curves are from the short sharp filter. The other filters measure equally to the short sharp filter, which I like best sound-wise. A DAC in general isn't a complex device to use. Connect a digital source to an input and connect the outputs to your amp. Then select the input used, which here is done by shortly pressing the volume knob, select input in the menu and select the input you want to use. Go back one level in the menu and select the output you use. XLR, RCA, both or headphones. That's it. There are options you can play around with by stepping through the menu, like choosing the reconstruction filters, headphones gain boost, fix the variable output level, phase invert, the screensaver time and the screen brightness, and the function of the FN key on the remote. It can be set to switch between line and headphone output, switch all outputs on, select Bluetooth or inverse phase. And all can be discovered and learned within minutes or, if you're hopeless with gear, perhaps in half an hour. As said, between the filters there are clear differences, but they all sound good with the exception of the super slow filter. When that is used, high frequencies sound and measure more distorted. After careful comparison, I chose the short sharp filter to do the listening test. Let me also make clear that the digital source can have a profound influence on the sound quality too. The Magna Hi-Fi streamer running Ruby Rune endpoint software offers a rather good digital signal. That leads to the sound quality that even a few years ago was not available at this price. The overall characteristic is on the bright side without being harsh. The spatial information remains fairly intact, although the stereo image could be wider. Resolution in the mids is good while the highs and lows offer slightly less resolution, but it's all at a level that is rather good given the price. And there are some tricks to clearly enhance the sound quality. Firstly, if you use a player software, reduce the volume in that player by 3 dB. I use the headroom management in Roon, but many other players offer comparable functions. For more information, see my video Improve the sound quality of your DAC for free, links at the usual places. The second improvement is upsampling. In your player software, switch on the upsampling function that uses 2, 4 or 8 times upsampling. So not the maximum sampling frequency, but the maximum integer one. 44 1 kHz files should be upsampled to 88.2, 176.4 or 352.8 kHz. That prevents rounding errors during upsampling and makes life easier for the reconstruction filter in the DAC. And that leads to a better sound quality. See my video Q&A Is Upsampling Better? When you do that with good software, you almost double the price category you find equal sounding DACs in, without headroom management and upsampling applied of course. Without the measures, the Sabaj classifies halfway my setup 2 in between A and B. With the -3 dB trick and upsampling in place, it classifies halfway setup 2A. The improvements made in digital audio equipment keep surprising me. But please realize that the network player, streamer if you like, or network bridge will have a clear influence on the sound quality. The time that you could think bits are bits lies behind us. Watch my video Why Digital Circuits Influence the Sound Quality for more information. Don't think that a €100 little streamer, when used digitally out into the Sabaj, offers the sound quality I described. It will work, you will hear music, but with more artifacts than I listen to. At least use a network bridge like the SOTM SMS200 if you want quality. If you do, the Sabaj really can make music. Which brings me to the end of this program. See you next Friday at 5 PM Central European Time. If you don't want to miss that, subscribe to this channel or follow me on the social media, so you will be informed when new videos are out. Nowadays my videos can be watched 1 week earlier and without commercials at Patreon at only a small fee of $1 per calendar month. See the link in the description. Help me reach even more people by giving this video a thumb up or link to this video on the social media. It is much appreciated. Many thanks to those viewers that support this channel financially. It keeps me independent and lets me improve the channel further. If that makes you feel like supporting my work too, the links are in the comments below this video on YouTube. I'm Hans Beekhuizen, thank you for watching and see you in the next show or on thehbproject.com. And whatever you do, enjoy the music.